Rumors are turning into reality. What began as faint murmurs in the Japanese press, subtle hints from lesser-known economists, has grown into a chorus. Regional analytical bulletins soon followed, citing anonymous sources within Tokyo's diplomatic circles. Now, major outlets from Nikkei to the South China Morning Post are reporting the same astonishing possibility. Japan is seriously considering joining BRICS. Until recently, such an idea would have sounded like pure fiction. But today, with the Financial Times and the Economist citing sources inside Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it's no longer just speculation. It's a political shockwave. Japan, one of America's oldest allies in Asia and long considered a pillar of Washington's Pacific strategy, is seemingly reassessing its alignment, a potential pivot toward BRICS, the very bloc Washington sees as a chief threat to the existing world order, would be no mere diplomatic maneuver. It could mark a point of no return. The motivations behind this shift have become clearer in recent months, starting with a trade war reignited by Donald Trump after his return to the White House. In March, Trump announced new tariffs on Japanese automobiles, an industry symbolic of Japan's economic identity. Major players like Honda, Toyota, and Nissan were suddenly in the crosshairs. The U.S. market, which absorbs nearly a third of Japan's automotive exports, was now shielded behind a tariff wall. Then came restrictions on electronics and high-tech components, followed by quotas on Japanese fish and seafood. America must come first, Trump proclaimed on Truth Social, adding that even allies could no longer expect preferential treatment. In Tokyo, those words landed like a betrayal. According to Kyodo News, whispers in the halls of Japan's parliament among ruling Liberal Democratic Party members included questions like, if even Japan is no longer an ally of the U.S., then who is? Amid this growing uncertainty, China and Russia acted strategically. Chinese delegations began visiting Tokyo more frequently, proposing new avenues of cooperation. According to Bloomberg, a confidential meeting took place in Shanghai in April, where the possibility of Japan joining BRICS trade mechanisms was discussed. Topics range from settling trade in yuan and rubles to joint tech clusters, energy projects, and integrating Japanese banks into BRICS alternative payment systems. What began as talk of observer status has, according to sources cited by Nikkei, evolved into discussions of full membership. The idea that a G7 nation, arguably the U.S.'s most loyal ally in Asia, could join the ranks of the Global South is nothing short of a geopolitical bombshell. Trade between Japan and BRICS nations is already booming. Japan's Ministry of Economy reports that in the past 6 months alone, exports to China are up 14%, to India by 21%, and to Brazil by 18%. Japanese firms are negotiating joint mining projects with South Africa in platinum and lithium. Even Russia, despite sanctions, continues to supply energy to Japan through intermediaries. Much of this commerce is happening outside the dollar system. Reuters reports that parts of these contracts have already shifted to yuan and rupees. Washington has taken notice. A White House spokesperson stated, "We are concerned that some allies may be drifting toward anti-American platforms." Trump went further on social media. If Japan joins BRICS, its economy will collapse, will make their exports worthless. But Japanese corporations appear to be charting a new course. Mitsubishi has signed a cooperation memorandum with India's Tata Group. Sony is exploring joint ventures with Chinese partners. And for the first time, Panasonic announced plans to sell transactions with Brazil directly in reais, bypassing the dollar entirely. Insiders cited by the Wall Street Journal say Japan's political elite is now divided, while some, particularly within the military, worry about undermining the U.S. alliance. Others in the business community and Parliament argue that Japan must begin to chart an independent path. "We've lived in Washington's shadow for far too long," one senior official reportedly said at a closed-door meeting. Analysts note that, for the first time in decades, Japan is showing genuine interest in initiatives that challenge dollar dominance, exploring the digital yuan, engaging with BRICS' new development bank, and building direct trade channels with India and Brazil. All of these developments are building towards something that, until recently, seemed unthinkable. If Japan ultimately makes a decision to join BRICS, it would mark not just a diplomatic rupture with the United States, but a global signal. The G7 is no longer the unchallenged center power. Analysts of The Economist have already called Japan's potential accession to BRICS the most serious blow to Western unity since World War II. For the U.S., it would be a strategic disaster, the loss of its closest ally in Asia, and with it, control over critical sea lanes and trade routes. For China, on the other hand, it would be a historic diplomatic triumph. What's especially worrying for Washington is how the shift is starting to reshape public opinion inside Japan itself. According to a recent Asahi Shimbun poll, Japanese trust in the United States has dropped below 50% for the first time in 30 years. Meanwhile, 62% respondents said Japan should deepen ties with other Asian countries, including China and India, a signal that can't be ignored. A country long oriented toward the West is, for the first time, visibly leaning east. Among younger generations, the change is even more pronounced. Increasingly, Japanese youth see China and India not as rivals, but as centers of innovation and opportunity. More and more, they view Japan's future as tied to Asia rather than to Washington. Universities are beginning to explore joint academic programs with institutions in China and India, while business schools are already offering courses on how to work within the BRICS framework. The media is taking notice, too. In its July report, the Financial Times observed that Japan joining BRICS would symbolize the end of the Pax Americana in Asia. Nikkei noted that Japanese corporations can no longer count on American market stability and are instead developing long-term strategies centered around China and India. Meanwhile, Bloomberg, citing sources in Japan's Ministry of Finance, reported that the first round of trial agreements for settling transactions in yuan and rupees between Japanese and Asian banks may soon be signed. The reaction from U.S. allies has revealed growing anxiety. In Seoul, officials have expressed that a regional security architecture without Japan firmly within the American alliance is difficult to imagine. In Australia, the Sydney Morning Herald called Japan's potential BRICS membership a geopolitical earthquake. Even in Europe, where unity within the G7 was once taken for granted, analysts are beginning to ask, if Japan steps out of America's shadow, can the West attain its global economic influence? Inside Japan, there are also voices urging caution. Some military officials fear that moving closer to BRICS could jeopardize the U.S. security umbrella. But according to insiders in Tokyo, the driving force is economic. If American tariffs remain in place, Japanese companies will increasingly pivot toward Asia. No defense pact can stop that. The central irony is this. It is Trump's own protectionist policies that are pushing Japan toward BRICS. The more Washington tightens the screws, the faster Tokyo moves in the opposite direction. And on this point, experts across the spectrum agree. Unless the White House changes course in the coming months, we may soon witness more than just rumors. By this fall, Japan could formally declare its readiness to join BRICS. And when that happens, the world map will be permanently redrawn.